So, good morning, Hope Warriors. My name is FayDay Anspa, and you have landed on Hope Warriors, the FayDay show, where we're united around the idea of hope, healing, and wholeness. Hope Warriors is brought to you today by The Rec, a great place for family bowling, event gathering, and youth mentoring. Also by Nolan Productions. So if you have a song that you want recorded, if you have lyrics you want music to, call Corey Nolan at 503-409-0780. And tell him Faye sent you. Also, Stella Dinwiddie Insurance. If you need health insurance, long-term, short-term care, if you need life insurance, just give her a call. Also, our own General Donna Prigmore Consulting. And today by Flying High Hat Company in Silverton, Oregon. So thanks for joining us. And I have a little bit of scratchy throat today, so it's going to be fun. Many of you have heard my story of being raised in foster care, childhood trauma, domestic violence, drug addiction, physical, mental, and other abuses witnessed and or experienced. Abandonment, transferred to several foster homes, had 2 foster fathers who were pedophiles, which in 65 to 72 was largely ignored by the system. Not today. I married young, probably to escape foster care, then became a foster mom in 2000. And one of the agencies that I received one of my favorite youth from was Connections 365. And today it is my honor to be able to sit with my friend and colleague, and also under the foster care system, my boss, where I got Chris. He's been one of my favorite foster kids. He was on the show not too long ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it was very fun. And so there's an amazing process that Connections does with youth. And I wanted Debbie here to talk a little bit about that. But first, let's get to know Debby Lute. Debbie, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good to be here.
So excited. So tell us a little bit about your journey. I know the story, but our listeners don't.
Like from the beginning.
Yeah.
So I was raised by a single mom, and we had a lot of anger and frustration in our mix because of the trauma of that and the loss of a father. And so she escaped domestic violence and moved to Salem, Oregon, which is how I got here.
Wow.
I was from Brookings, Oregon.
Okay.
My family grew up down there. And so I was 5 and a half. And she immediately, worked 60 hours a week to support the family. We moved nonstop, different schools all the time. But overall, I didn't have your experience. I didn't get disrupted from my home. And my mom was a dedicated servant to her kids.
Oh, that's
so
cool.
I have that part of my story. My husband and I started working with young adults at age 20. Got married, and we worked in multiple churches all throughout Oregon, and landed back again in Salem, where I took a kind of a mission call to come to Connections 365, which was then Christian Community Placement Center.
And 30 years. About, yeah.
35. This is our 35th year.
Oh, wow.
And I've been there 17. So I grew up there in this work.
Yes.
Brand new to it, but really in the church world, it was the same work, just helping people and coming alongside of them and counseling them and helping their life be the best it could be. So
That's right.
I love that work, and that's my mission field.
And you started at Connections as a case manager, right?
I started as a mentor.
A mentor. Okay.
I did one mentor session, and then I came as a case manager. And then
what
grew up.
do mentors do? Just so we kind of define that as we're later looking at some of the things and areas that are needed.
So mentors are one-on-one with the kids. They have awareness of where they have lagging skills. So they're working on that. They're working on, they have trouble transitioning, or they have trouble with peer relationships, social, and they go into the community and they work one-on-one with these kids to encourage them and support them and give them tools that they have seen work. And that is very rewarding.
Yeah.
Because you're right alongside those kids while they're right along their life, trying to gain ground and improve in areas that could eventually put them on the streets or in prison.
Absolutely.
And so that's mentoring is a very valiant and amazing opportunity to work with kids.
And at Connections, mentoring could be a paid position, right?
Yep. We don't have any non-paid.
Okay.
very
Fully paid.
part-time,
Okay.
but paid hourly.
Okay. Good maybe for a college student or good for someone who doesn't need full-time work, but they'd like to do something meaningful, maybe toward their degree completion.
Correct. Yeah. So we work a little bit with Corbin University and have been trying to branch into the colleges. It's kids are busy.
Yeah.
And they're doing their education, but we really do look to those places. And it's a partnership. So they're gaining skills, like you mentioned, where they're really finding that experience that will marry with their degree. So by the time they get to the point where they want to step in and be full-time in the community, they have both sides of that equation well done and ready to go.
That's powerful. And you went from being a mentor then to?
Then I was case manager.
Case manager. And what do case managers do?
So case managers really create the plan around the youth. They look at the histories, they look at the current behaviors, and they create what's called a service plan. And that also within it has goals, so, and the hope is that that youth engages with that and they determine partly, what it is they want to work on, because we know that change happens intrinsically.
That's right.
And the old system, which you described a little bit and what you grew up in, was very correction-minded, so that it was a very external, extrinsic beat on the outside of someone and, have them write 100 million sentences and sit at a table. And that I don't think that produces the fruit. I know it doesn't. The fruit comes when someone says, yeah, I can do that. And they do it. And I have lots of stories around shocking change that I had no idea what little thing I was offering them would work. And it's proven to be true. So
I was fortunate to have 2 good foster homes out of the 4.
Yeah.
Really good.
Yeah,
So,
I got to hang on to that.
Yeah.
But yes, so we visit with the kid, we meet with the youth, we coach them, we cheer them on. We meet with the whole team. They usually have a pretty robust team. And we identify the services that they might need, what could be alcohol and drug counseling or mental health counseling. And we hook them up with those things. And I just feel like we get to be their coach and their cheerleader.
That's awesome. And you did case management for how long?
I started in 2007, and I did that clear through to 2012.
Oh, wow.
And then I was also a program manager over all those case managers. So that was fun, because then I love seeing people become who they are.
Yeah.
And when you're working with the case managers themselves, you're cheering them on and you're coaching them. And most of them were fresh out of college, master's degrees, bachelor's degrees, and their experience was 2% out of 100 of real life experience.
Right.
And so it was fun to be able to grow them up, and their passion and their desire was present.
Yeah.
But you just have to gain some ground on that.
What I loved about you, Debbie, and working with you and for you was the idea of allowing people to be who they are in the company. And that was something we met many times around not only my position and our what we were trying to accomplish, but we met around this notion, and it's a powerful notion. And it was true how you manifested that in mentorship and case management. But then what happened?
Then I call this the day the rug was pulled out from underneath us all. And our organization, we'd lost the founding wife, and her husband didn't recover well.
Yeah.
And so we got a new board, and they wanted to take a look at everything and comb through everything. And we were in pretty bad shape financially, behaviorally. And so they asked me to do a 90-day stint while they kind of figured things out. And
as the executive director.
And as the battles were won, and I won't go into them unless you ask, but the battles were won, it was evident that I had a skill set that I didn't know I ever had, and that it would serve this organization well. And so I kept going, and that was 2012, and this is 24, and total 17 years later, I have been honored and challenged to work for this nonprofit organization. And you're right, working with people and letting them be who they are is always a huge, have to be committed to it. Because we're all different. And we have different perspectives and all kinds of different perspectives. And it's easy to put people in boxes and to get people into camps. And I think that's one of my biggest battles is to not allow that kind of entrenchment so that we do have full expression of
right,
people
especially
that can
in the
help people.
workplace, because it has to be a safe place to go.
Yeah.
Spend a third of your day there,
Right.
It's just
in our society at large.
50% of your day.
No, yeah. It's funny. What did they say? Like 80% of your life spent at work. So it really matters.
Yeah, either at the job or at home worrying about the job.
the job, yeah.
That's right.
Yes.
And that's what executive directors do. I mean, they have to worry about not only what's happened, what is happening, but you have to project into the future.
Yep, and that's super important.
It is.
Where are we going and why?
Yeah.
The why.
Yeah. Yeah, we talked a lot about the why, didn't we?
And you got to get back in touch with that sometimes.
Yeah. Otherwise, you might want to give up, to be honest.
Yes.
Yeah, that's interesting. So you did this temporary, and then how long was it before you were then selected as the executive director?
I would say maybe 6 months.
Okay.
It was a process.
Yeah.
Once all the dust settled, then it just it was kind of like, how do you, well, first of all, I didn't qualify for the job I was in. I didn't know that because it required certain things that I didn't have. So that's my story about going back to college. But I did qualify to be the executive director.
Yeah.
And so it just kind of made itself clear that this was the right thing, unbeknownst to all of us.
Well, a long time ago, Debbie, people would start at the bottom and move all the way to the top of whatever company they were. That's a tradition of learning the process and therefore having empathy for those positions below you,
exactly.
right? Your subordinate positions. And so I think that's one of the things that have made you successful and with people who work for you, frankly.
Right.
And I mean, I've been gone I left because of a stroke, not because of you. I love you. And I didn't know if I'd come back.
Right.
And I didn't then, recent diagnosis and stuff. But I'm just really a fan. I'm a fan of what you guys do. I'm a fan on so many levels. I worked as a foster parent, and I started with you guys as a foster parent in 2017. I was doing some training there at Connections, and then started doing development of the programs and fundraising and getting our name out there. That was probably the biggest
that was a huge
influence.
Huge need filled too.
Yeah, it was.
And you're good at that, so there you go.
And promoting other people. I can do that with my eyes closed because I love it. And that's one of the reasons that I wanted you to come is I wanted people to know what you're doing out there. We went through COVID together, Debbie.
I know it.
And that was hard.
Very hard.
It was hard for a number of reasons. We had a colleague out sick who was a key player in our organization. And everyone picked up.
Yes, we did.
In that.
It was hard work.
Yeah. And there were some things we couldn't do, so we did the things that we could.
Correct.
And I think we did those better than we've ever done.
Crisis brings people together.
Yeah.
That's my belief.
Yeah.
And we had to think outside the box. And one of the biggest successes I saw in that season was all the grant funds that we got for certain things, not the right things. People began to say, please use it for what you need.
Yeah.
And we took about $25,000 and built the basketball courts on two places. We upgraded the garden. We invested in the kids' activities that no longer could be in community.
Yeah.
So we brought the community to the 10 acres.
Yeah.
And it was, in some ways, kind of a dream come true because we needed that community there too. Because sometimes these youth can't go in community for a season. And so it had fruit in the midst of the storm.
Absolutely.
And I'm very grateful. It's one of my happy moments is seeing that property and knowing these grantors really allowed us to kind of do what's plan B here. And it was done well, and we have good people that put it together.
So what kind of services right now, and I should say, what kind of services does Connections 365 offer? But it's been changed a lot because of COVID. A lot has changed. But what are some services that Connections is offering right now?
So for youth that have been identified with the correction side of the world, juvenile justice, we have 2 homes, small, intentionally small, 1 bedroom each. And those programs are kind of a bookend. One side of it is, please don't go to McLaren and get locked up.
Yes.
That's called diversion.
Uh-huh.
And that's a 90-day roughly. And the other side are kids that are stepping out of McLaren because McLaren themselves have realized that they don't fit with the criminally minded youth and their mental health specific kids that are struggling with self-regulation and reactivity. And so they're with us for about a year and a half with the hope of step down into community, not return to McLaren.
Exactly.
And that very few return to McLaren, which is good news.
Real good
but
news.
It's labor intensive. They are extremely reactive kids. So we have a wonderful group of staff, some with lived experience that are working with those kids day and night. And so that's one part. The other part that we offer is our therapeutic foster care. And we're really low on homes, to be honest. After COVID, it just wiped some things out and people rearranged their lives.
They did.
And so in that case, the state of Oregon has some pretty high needs kids, Department of Human Services, and you were in the Oregon Youth Authority side of therapeutic foster care. And we are looking for homes that have the capacity to bear along with these kids. It works, but it could be lengthy and a lot of ups and downs. So
I was certified for all three.
Yeah,
the
correct.
county
And that's
DHS.
our preference. Because we want to take the kid in front of us, the youth.
Right. Yeah.
And so we certify for all the programs.
Yeah.
But that's a program that is not balancing our budget because we just need a certain number of homes to be able to care for a certain number of kids. And then mentoring, like you mentioned, that is a program that is also, through COVID, suffered loss. Because we need kids to mentor. But at the same time, the program's solid and the mentoring unit is in shape. It's just we got to get the kids to be able to match them with the mentors. But that's a program. And we really believe in wraparound. So years ago, you'd have some of your experience too, where it's just you and the parent, barely see the caseworker, kind of on your own.
Yeah, only time you saw them is if somebody was in trouble in your home.
Then they'd come out.
And I tried to stay out of trouble.
Yes. And so the mentoring is a huge part of, if a youth needs that extra support, we can give it. It often prevents disruption of placement because we pull them out of the home, we put them in community. It's not just the parent struggle with the kid.
Yeah.
And then we also have outpatient mental health, which was a huge gift.
Huge.
And that means that our kids don't have to knock on community doors and wait weeks to get help.
Yeah.
But we assign a therapist right in-house. They get the help they need right away. And we also get the opportunity to reach into the community and help community members.
How many therapists are you operating right now?
We currently have 3 out of 5.
Awesome.
It's very difficult to find staff.
Right.
And a lot of for-profits are stepping in with big bucks. And we're a nonprofit. And so it takes a certain degree. It's not just anybody can do that work.
Absolutely.
But
and they have to be licensed with the state.
They have to be licensed,
there's so many.
Correct.
One of the things that we've noticed as we've read the news lately is we've had organizations who have been unlicensed, who've had some really awful outcomes as a result. And the state has stepped in and said, no, you can't do that. And while it was a good experiment, perhaps, that was the idea, I've noticed in all of my dealings with you and with Connections 365 that you are aware of the Oregon administrative rules and the laws, and you follow them.
Correct.
And that's really important.
Right.
And you still get results. See, I think that's the thing that I really the story I want to tell is, people say, well, there's just too many regulations, too many rules. What? These rules are to guard children and to guard foster parents.
Right.
I felt protected with those rules as a foster
as
parent.
best we could. And even then, there's risk.
Yeah. But I felt protected.
Right.
Like you said, I had mentors that could take him if I needed a little mental health break or whatever. But yeah, I felt protected in the system that you have, and you followed the rules.
Yeah, and not to get too deep on that political side of things, but I have to say that the state didn't follow their own rules.
Yes.
And so whoever would step in to fill that gap would have been somewhat of a victim at some level because they didn't have the transparency requirement and the structure requirement. And so it didn't work. Yeah. Experiment or not, it didn't work. And there were a lot of people that were hurt from that fail.
Tons.
And it's still playing out.
I was there, so I know it firsthand.
It's still playing out, and I have a heart for everybody on all sides
me too.
because
and being friends with that executive director and spouse. So it's really important. Yeah.
We got to be tucked under the oversight.
You do. And the reason is because there's liability on so many levels. And when the state realized that they legitimately were going to be called on the carpet for their not having oversight, that's when they got down on this other company. And so that's another reason to know the law and to know the rule and to follow them.
One of my biggest hearts is toward advocacy.
Yeah.
So do all the rules make sense? Are they written right? And do they cause more risk? Yes, some. And so we have a organization called the Oregon Alliance, and there's a bunch of providers, and we have a great relationship with the state and both sides, Oregon Youth Authority and DHS, and we're at the table monthly, and we're talking about what are the barriers and what part of the oversight isn't working, or how could it be better written, and super excited about the season of collaboration. Again, crisis can have the opportunity to pull everybody together and say, how are we going to handle this and how are we going to approach it instead of us and them? Yeah. And so I strive to live in the we part of
Which brings me to
life.
the whole purpose of Connection 365 Youth.
Yeah,
okay?
Right.
Can we talk about what happens if these youth don't have proper care?
Right.
Can we talk about that for a minute?
Yes, we can. Well, they're 100% at risk for homelessness. There's no doubt about it. And that system, although it's been getting a lot of money, it still is a developing system of, I heard recently youth are not on the waiting list for apartments because they have to be a certain age to get their background checked. So I'm working with a group right now where we're looking at how do we change that? Yeah. Because at some kids like you, perhaps, at an age of 16, 17, you had to be on your own.
You did.
So how do we, where do we put them and how do we get them there? So some of that's going on. The youth also truly could end up as adults incarcerated. Yeah. You see it with the youth that we serve. They're at risk for all of that right now. And so it's important that
2 out of my 5 siblings that were in foster care were either cuffed or incarcerated for a period of time.
Right.
So that's,
So while
40%.
we have them, I think the hardest thing to sell about our work is that it's an intervention. It's not a long-term solution. Yeah. And so our organization, I'm proud to say, are partnered with all the long-term solutions while we work in the intervention. Right. So we get to see, it's disheartening at times because bureaucracy moves slow. Yeah. But we also see the need and we also see the risk and where they could be headed. But I can tell you our organization does bear long, and that could mean in our residential facilities with those youth that have so many mental health concerns, they react, they break out, they break things, they lose their way a minute, and that is not a deterrent. We just got to repair the wall because we're not going to hope that they end up, see ya, here's the street. Go do the things we tried to get you to give up. Because
they have had that experience so many times. Yes. And it happened so early in their development that they recreate that familiar behavior. And so when it doesn't happen, something changes in people. I remember just before Chris left, and he's allowed me to share this story. He was getting ready to go home for a home visit. And I just detected something was wrong. He picked up a bag that hadn't been packed and I hadn't looked at. And I go, what's in the bag? He goes, Faye, no. I go, what's in the bag? And miraculously, my short, chubby self was able to lunge. He was at the front door. From my couch to the front door, grabbed the handle of the bag. And in the most gentle way, he held onto that bag, not to hurt me. Right. But he didn't want to disappoint me. Right. And he didn't. So eventually, his dad was there, and his dad and I coaxed him into giving the bag. He was still going to go on home visit. And a big old weed thing. Well, I had to report it. The laws are you have to report it. But I begged, don't move him. Right. I want our family to deal with it. Yes. Why? Because he needed to graduate. Right. He needed to complete. And that's the kind of conversations that we get to have in a therapeutic environment. Am I wrong?
No, that is what it's hard to. Sometimes the system that we've been raised in doesn't give you that space.
Yeah, but I had great POs
Right.
and all that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
And
we
that's
all
who
know,
I called first.
we know regression is part of recovery.
It is.
And the foundation underneath that failure, that mistake, that has to be solid.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're launched into your own despair.
Yeah.
And so that's
And I brought him on at that time to talk about how the program worked for him. And he said, okay, I'll talk about it. And he's on air and I go, what worked? He goes, you.
Mm-hmm.
And he couldn't go to the program
Right.
because the relationship had been solid. And of course, now I'm melting into 1,000 pieces as a foster mom. Like, oh. But the point is, but it took the program to get him there.
Right.
It was through connections. It was through the step down program. It was through, as a step out, a McLaren program, that he was able to have that conversation.
Right. Yeah, and sometimes the program can get in the way a little bit. That's just part of the risk of all programizations.
Yeah.
It's not a one-size-fits-all.
Right, but he doesn't realize that until later.
Oh, yeah, way later.
Way later.
Yeah. Parents don't have a brain until the kid gets 26.
Yeah, that's right.
They realize,
or they
my
have a child of
gosh.
their own.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, it's true, but it is the one person, and all research points to that.
Yeah.
I remember my 5th grade teacher. I was going through, my family was separate and divorced and disrupted, and I was hurting in ways that I didn't understand or even knew. And here was this Mrs. Brown that read Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory every day for 30 minutes.
Wow.
And I found out she was from Brookings, and I found out there was this out-of-the-norm connection. Wow. And then her husband taught me in junior high, and we became this little group. You weren't day to day, but it had an internal impact on my heart. So, you hopefully our homes are the reason.
Yeah.
Hopefully that is the face the kids see, not the program at some level, because the structure impacts, but the face could be permanent, hopefully, in some ways.
Yeah. I want to talk about how in a program you think you could describe best to create the hardiness or the grit or the resilience in a youth and still do the program. Do you see what I'm saying?
Right. Well, I think you have to be very clear what the program is so that they know what to expect. And the day the organization moved to every day is a clean slate instead of every day is piled on top of the previous days was a really big turning point for youth. And so really...
Which is how you do be at your own house.
Correct.
Because you love your kids. Right.
And you have to address things, and you have to, when we learned years ago, and I learned it, that there's no frontal cortex development until 26, 28 now. Yeah. I had already raised my kids, and the light bulb went on. Oh, I'm the frontal cortex.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have been beaten so hard on myself for being the rule maker and the enforcer. And so when I look at our families and their homes and how to support them, we don't really want them to be the bad guy.
Yeah.
We want the family to be the support and the nurturing. Yeah. However, the structure is built so the youth knows what to expect.
Exactly.
If every day's a new day, then great. Right. If we have to have day routine, we have chores, just like a family.
Just like a family.
Sometimes these kids get so programized that they now feel entitled.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult to crack that shell because they really do believe, I don't have to do that. I'm in a program, so you're really working. Au
contraire, mon frère.
Exactly. Which is why foster homes are great, because they're family. It's not the program a residential facility, which we want to get people really into home settings and community.
But they're needed, like you said, though, for the step down, because there is a distinction between institutionalized youth, step down into kind of a semi-home, and now into a foster home, which is, I think, the best layering system for my son at this point. Right. He got to graduate. Right. We got a big old party.
And he saved money.
And he saved $7,500 of his own.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he bought a 2018 Mercedes.
Wow.
Didn't ask for advice, so he made some mistakes on the purchase because he bought a lemon.
As a lot of us have.
Yeah. Who hasn't, right? That's what I'm trying to say with foster kids. Or kids who've been in trouble or whatever. Don't think them different than yourself. No. Because your kids make mistakes,
You're going to turn around the next day and have some compromise somewhere.
Right.
Yes. We're all the same.
Yeah.
We just have to help one another.
Yeah.
Mark shared at our event the other night, Mark Adams, a picture of a guy and a youth below him holding a suitcase. And the phrase used was with a little help from our friends.
Yeah.
And we're all the same.
Yeah.
We all go through seasons, and we all go through ups and downs, good behavior, bad behavior. But these youth are at a stage where they're really at risk for being out in a system of homelessness or prison that would not be the best road for them or anybody.
So one of the things that I remember wanting to instill in my own kids, but also in kids that I fostered, was this idea that internally they would want to practice self-control, not have me control them.
Right.
And to shift that paradigm around the willingness to sacrifice yourself short-term for a long-term goal you have. So finding their why, getting back to that, finding their why really is powerful.
It is. I think in the disruption of society and family, it's really a lot tougher for them. And it was for you.
Yeah.
You know, you can end up in despair and hopelessness pretty quickly if you don't have that face.
Exactly.
Like, let me remind you who you are, not who you are behaving as, but who you are. And you do that really well. You did that really well with Chris.
I love
But you
that,
didn't
Jen.
compromise.
Nope.
Makes you cry, right? But
Oh, yeah.
Come
Got
on,
this
Chris.
little leaky eye over here.
I know who you are.
Yeah.
And that's my goal, is that you discover all. You know, like when I took my job as the executive director, I had no idea. I never aspired to that. And frankly, I didn't want to be, I left one day as a friend and the next day as the boss.
Yeah.
That's not fun.
It's hard.
But I discovered I had to do it because I knew I found out who I was. Like I had the skill set. And with these kids, it's all in there. It's distracted. It's taken from them, but it's in there, you know, the will to do good and to have a life. But we roll up our sleeves and we come alongside them. And ours is short-term work, but I'm still engaged with the homeless conversations of how do we help societal members have a apartment, not a tent.
Exactly.
You know, and it's hard.
You know, my theory on that, if you feed them on the streets and you clothe them on the streets and you house them on the streets, they will forever be on the streets because you're treating them like ducks.
Right. They have
who
to
live
be
outdoors.
They have to be established
And
somewhere.
there are some people who choose the outdoor, and if you asked them, would you take a house? They'd say, absolutely not. I don't want the responsibility. But there are those out there who want to have a place. I think it's interesting to note the percentage of people on Oregon's, I can only speak for Oregon, percentage of people out there, roughly 3,500 people homeless of all ages, just, you know. All ages, is exactly the amount of people that were released in 92 from state hospital.
Really? Yeah, right.
So it becomes generational. So I think there is, I wouldn't say a causal, but I'd certainly say there's a correlation between that.
Yeah.
And then if
they had shelter at some level.
Exactly. Yeah, they had shelter. And I'm not saying mental hospitals were the best, but there are some people, our family just experienced a situation where the brother, who was schizophrenic, who would have been in a state hospital, was roaming the streets and killed his own mom.
Wow.
On Monmouth, Oregon, 2 years ago, November. And what do you do? Now, a brother is suffering in prison, and another brother suffering from the absence of both of them, their mom, and then the grandkids and so on. There's so much suffering by a simple thing. Some people ought not to be free.
Right.
And we used to have those.
And that is taking care of them that way.
Totally taking care of them.
You're not dismissing them to
their
own.
Yeah, you said earlier, the rules are important for the kids, the structure, the routine. It's the same with the mentally ill. When I worked in the prison system, chronically mentally ill people did better in prison than they do on the streets. Why? They knew what to expect.
Right.
Nobody mistreated them in there. They had routinized medication. They had freedom in a sense that they never had before because their minds are all messed up on whatever drug they're choosing to take. Did they have choice? I don't know. Is it a choice when somebody walks up and asks you for your prescription med so they can go sell it on the street for a higher value than this non-prescription med? We don't know how your brain's going to react. Right. Are they free? Or did they just come into a new slavery?
Right.
It's a question we need to start asking. And for me, I'm about, you know me, I'm about asking the hard question, you know.
Right.
Are we telling people the truth?
Right.
You know?
Well, and I think having external eyes on a situation when you're not able to keep your own straight sanity in it.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever.
Well,
it could be a medical issue. It could be a mental health issue. Financial.
Yeah, I had to call in a friend years ago in 96 because, you know, there was a business partner that I had who wasn't paying his taxes. So I called in a friend. I'm not an accountant.
Right.
They were supposed to be doing what they were supposed to do. Anyway, ended up the government owed me $6,000.
Yeah.
Because I did the right thing. I called somebody who... So asking for help is a sign of strength.
And trusting society to be that help is where we all have to come together. And it's all complicated.
It is
all
complicated.
This is complicated.
Yeah.
But I don't think that I know the shoes that someone else has walked in.
No, me too.
But I can say, how can I help?
Yeah.
And if you say you want to, for example, quit lying because you have a habit of lying, like one of my kids, then I will strategize with you as a case manager of how can I help?
Yeah.
And first of all, step one, do you want to work on it?
Yeah,
you know,
there's the truth.
And I had this kid that said, I just have a habit of lying, and the home was dumping him with his clothes on the side at work, you know, like bringing him back. I'm done. I can't take the drip. And I said, out of the blue, I'd done motivational interview, and I said, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, which I didn't really believe in motivational. I mean, it was my way or the highway when I raised my kids, not this collaborative approach. But it came out of my mouth, shot right out. And he said, I'm an 8. I said, I thought he'd be a 1. Like, I don't really care. So I said, okay, I'm going to send this yellow notepad home with you if you'll do it. Every time your parent gives you the look, gives you the nod, that you know they're saying, okay, we know that's not true. Just write. I forget the sentence. It was probably a motivational. I really want to tell the truth. I don't know what it was. And he came back the next week. And he goes, what if I didn't lie? And I said, then star it. I want to know. I want to see what you see.
Yeah.
Like, we're talking, what do you see on the inside? I wasn't skilled. It just was wisdom, you know. Came back, never heard about lying again the whole time he was with us.
Wow.
That simple act of a marrying partnership. I want to do what you need. I want to help you. What's your goal? And him to say it was enough to get him to do it.
I had a
It
client.
doesn't always work like that, but wow.
I had a client on my couch this week, and he said, I've earned trust at my house. Been working with him for 6 months. Came to me 18, kind of slouching in every way, emotionally, physically. And I'm like, oh, so, you know, and he was upset that his parents were expecting him to do such and such, whatever it is. I'm like, oh, so are you paying the bills? No. I said, oh, who's paying the bills? My parents. Oh, okay. So do you want to have your own voice? Yeah. You need to get on your own. He's like, I go, yeah, that's the only way you're going to have your own voice is to pay your own bills. Do you want to get there or not? Yeah, I want to have my... So he's picked up his chores at home. He's earned his phone back. And he came in proud, and he went from this to and when you see that, you know, so in some senses, I still get to have that kind of effect.
Yes,
but I want to have it in my home.
But he could see it.
Yeah, he could see it.
And you know, it reminds me of that scripture: "Without a vision, the people perish."
Yes.
If he has a vision, he can see it. Then he has the capacity to walk into it versus hopeless and despair. You know, living in that realm.
You used to use a metaphor of kids and kind of how they're at with briars. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Yeah, would you
that
share
was
that
another
for a minute?
revelation.
Yeah.
So my husband and I are out hunting, and we enter the scrubby part right before a clearing. It's, you know, you drop 7 feet, don't know you're going to drop because it's just brush and it's impenetrable, impassable. And I was mad at him for taking us the wrong way. But when we got to the clearing, there were like 5 different paths. Clear as a bell. There, you could go right, you could see the deer trails. And I really was moved by the thought that, you know, our work here is to take out our machete and stand alongside someone that's stuck in that briar and cut the path. But once they get to the clearing, and they can have their choice. They come to a place where they can choose. They get to choose, hopefully the best path ever. But it was pretty intense. I just realized this is the kid. These are the kids.
Yeah.
We've got to help cut that pathway. They're stuck. They're mired. They're, overwhelmed with the growth of all kinds of
And they feel like
weeds.
you did, like somebody took them down the wrong way.
Yeah, no kidding. Or they just got there and they don't even know how they got there.
But they want to blame something. We all do.
We do. But it doesn't bear fruit very long. But so you pull out, I just could see the machete, and I thought, that's what I needed, a machete to get to the clearing. And these kids need the machete. They need to cut, we need to cut the original. Let's get them to the path where they can choose a path.
Yeah.
So that's how I see it.
We talk a little bit about the acreage out there and a little bit about what your vision is for it, Debbie.
So we have 10 acres. Bond Adventures below us, and they're continually looking at building more. And so we're just keeping an eye on the hope that we can get city services. We need water and sewer. It's pretty costly. But 10 acres is a lot of land. And it's when you turn the corner and you show up at our place, it's super pastoral.
Yes, it is.
Peaceful. It's beautiful. You have a little bit of a view. And these kids, I'm super happy that, there are other providers that have gotten what they've gotten, and they're on the corner of Powell and 32nd or something, and the cars zoom by and you're on concrete. And here we have this walking path.
Serene.
We have a community garden. There's no limit to what we had a kid that wanted to grow his own plants right in his front yard at Continuum, and we created a space for him, and he was out there so much. We used to have chickens, but they all, they aged out, but there's all this potential if we can caretake it. That was the problem with chickens. They're 24/7. But beautiful, beautiful place of peace for these kids to come to for the season that they're going to be there. And I highly value our property. And I really wish people would just come take a tour. Yeah. Because again, if you envision something, you're more empowered to walk it out.
That's right.
So you never know. I never knew I'd be the executive director. I never envisioned that.
No.
But I got in the seat and I went, oh my gosh, we need to not have a balloon payment. Oh, we have an IRS audit. Great. Oh, and then we just walked it out. And I thought, I can do this.
Right.
I had no idea.
You get audited every 2 years. Right?
We get audited every 2 years, not by IRS, thankfully.
No, but just by an accreditation system.
We got accredited this year nationally for 3 years from CARF.
Oh, that's awesome.
And that's took 2.5 years of hard work to get there, and we got it. Yeah. You don't usually get it the first year.
No, and that's from the mental health side, right?
No, that's
the whole thing.
BRS, foster care,
that's awesome.
residential. So, you have a standard that you've set. It was not a small project.
No, it wasn't.
But it's set. And, and it also gave me permission to make change.
Yeah.
Oh, CARF says we have to do it.
Yeah.
It's not just Debbie says we have to do it. Her good idea.
Yeah.
It's a nationally renowned good idea.
Yeah, and they make recommendations.
Absolutely. I had a whole list. I'm still working on them. But they're all things that we know we needed to get to. It's not a surprise.
Yeah.
It's like, yay, now we have to.
Beautiful.
So that back to bureaucracy, back to accountability. It makes you perform at a level you wouldn't necessarily have all the self-discipline to get to. But now we have to. We have to have weekly supervision meetings.
Yeah.
Great.
Beautiful.
I realized that was one of our problems is we talked to each other every 3 months.
Yeah.
You never got the to-do list done.
Yeah.
And so I feel like the organization, although we're struggling with finances because it's a fee-for-service environment, so we say we'll take 5 kids, but we get paid only if they're there.
Yeah.
Only if you have your session.
Right.
It's a bad way to fund care for these kids.
It is.
It needs to be capacity.
Right.
You set aside your capacity. You're there 24/7 and you take them.
That's right.
So
because then you can put your efforts on actually developing
your staff enough.
Youth. Yeah. And developing youth too.
Right. But when kids leave and you've got 7 staff on the floor and you're down to 1 instead of 3, you're still paying all your bills.
Yeah.
It's a terribly funded system. And they know it.
Yeah.
And bureaucracies move slow. But again, we're collaborative. We're with the group. We're all in it the same way. Yeah. But so our organization.
Hopefully some of the throwaway money they've been using will shift over seriously to foster care.
Permanently. It's one thing to hand someone $300,000 and say, do what you want for a year.
Right.
How about we embed it in the rate and say, we're going to give you $200 more a day.
Yeah.
Go pay your staff.
Yeah.
What's the percentage at the state level? They just got a raise.
Yeah.
What's our percentage? 3.
Yeah.
No. So I'm not
Or
complaining.
none for a while,
I'm
remember?
saying that energizes me to be
Yeah.
a part of system change.
Yeah.
But our organization as a whole, despite the low numbers that really can tank you, we're strong with our accreditation. We're strong with our providers. I feel like since 2012, have strengthened the foundation.
It's awesome.
So I see a foundation under that has nowhere to go but growth.
And that was one of your goals as person moving in the direction some 5 years down the line or whatever to retirement, is to be able to leave it well.
Right.
I remember us having that conversation.
And the foster parents, I want 5 strong foster parents right now, very small goal, to be strong together.
Yeah.
And to get back to being strong together with the support they need. We're in a good place to provide what's needed better.
Yeah.
It's just the finances are a bit of a struggle with the state.
Yeah. And foster parents are you're in the same boat to retain a foster home without kids.
Mm-hmm. There's no income. Because that's the way the state funded it.
Yeah. Exactly.
We're working on it. I won't go into all those details, but there's hope coming. But yeah, we have to have a stay-at-home parent, that they have the capacity to support their home while they get a stipend, daily stipend to support the kids.
Right.
And it's not a living wage.
Yeah. No, it's not.
Yet.
So because even when I do respite care, I'm going to spend way more money on the kid that weekend than respite care would provide.
The goal is it's a living wage.
Yeah.
And it's a family that have dedicated themselves to another human being, and they can pay their own bills.
If you take a kid out one time during a weekend, you've already spent the subsidy, which that's crazy. And you're going to want to be with the kid. You're going to take, like, if the fair's in town, you're going to want to take them there. If there's, you're going to
that's what they need.
Yeah.
They need the normalcy. They need the being
That's
in
what
part.
Chris got to experience, handing food boxes out during COVID, remember?
Yes.
That was one of his joys.
The give back. They need
yes.
places to give back.
And to work with me with Rotary, where we'd go put backpacks together or go clean a park. This kid was delighted to rake a park with me.
Yeah.
Just to be around you.
Well, and so to kind of capsulize on all that, you're looking at, for foster care, therapeutic foster care, becoming a family that gets to help this youth alongside your own kids become who I believe they really are.
Who God called them to be.
Exactly. And you need to be supported as well as we can. But that is a huge, at the end of the day, amazing journey.
It is.
With a human being that could be on the streets or it's a diversion from those places that we don't want them to end up.
Hey, my son, Chris, just popped in about 2 months ago, and we bought him a desk and, a dresser and a bed, and he didn't take it with him because he was going to his home where there was no room for the furniture. And so he said, I've got my apartment now. So he came down and got his furniture and a few boxes and things. And it was awesome. He's so proud.
Well, when we think about wraparound services, so go back there for just a minute. You think about someone like Chris. He has a family, and I don't know his story because it's as needed. Yeah. But let's say the family struggles, and you can see as a foster parent, these are kind of like the 5 ways this family really struggles. If our organization had funding for a community health worker that could step in on the other side, not related necessarily to the youth, the work the youth needs to work on, but support that family and figure out how to help strengthen them for that return. Right now, we don't cohabitate.
No.
Our work is not with the family necessarily, but I think that's key. Yeah. And so that's why I want to get involved in that.
I wouldn't allow Chris not to see his family, even though it was a rule.
I know.
And I took turkeys and, whatever for their holidays so they could spend just a little time. We were appropriately social distanced, but, he was going to go live there in like less than 6 months.
Right.
How do you separate people that long and then throw somebody in?
And the system doesn't fund that side of the prep.
So
they
we
don't.
We did ourselves.
But
and
that's what I'm saying.
Let's
be funding that a certain way and make that a component.
Yeah.
Not every kid gets to go home or has a home.
Yeah.
DHS especially. Those kids don't.
Oh, I know.
But let's fund and make that part of one of the components of the work.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I have vision.
And even
I just haven't got
therapy
there.
for a parent who's receiving a kid back would be awesome to be able to learn how to let go.
But some of those health workers are trained.
Yeah.
And they go into that home and they even do sessions with the kids on behavioral issues and all kinds of things. I don't know. I see it. I just have to walk
huge
there.
vision. Yeah, I do too. So right now, if someone were to say, okay, Executive Director Debby Lute, what does Connections 365 need? What is an emergent need? What is a dream? What is a, maybe right now, the right now need? And then I want to look at a year down the line need and maybe 5 years. What do you need? I'm going to take notes.
Okay.
Because it's important.
Well, right now, I think just having partners that can help us financially. So when we have those, I call it bridging the gap. You have 3 kids, 2 run, you immediately lose all income, takes you 6 weeks to get another kid in. We have to have a fund, not a slush fund, but you know what I mean?
Yes.
So we are gaining monthly donors and one-time givers and just that partnering. I also am like right around the corner is we really do need to remodel and build 3 more offices. And so the goal is people work in that building. So we need contracting type people that can partner with Kevin, who's fabulous. He is a contractor. And can we get this done in 2 months? That means weekends. That might be nights. We're going to build walls, tear down walls, cap off a bathroom.
Yeah.
So that kind of helps.
Haul away junk, just the junk hauler.
Just some hands on the project and getting the project off the ground. Long term, I do think we need to hook into city and get off the septic. It's a risk. Every time it has a problem. We had a $28,000 fail where it backed up. And so we need city services, and that is about $350,000. And we have to run the pipe down and, work with the city.
I remember.
But we still have that in our heart's desire.
Yes.
But it's
it's
timing. And so we have
and
some
every
ideas.
year we don't do it, it goes up.
We have someone that volunteered to give us an elbow, which is where you hook into if Bonaventure builds their other side. But who knows? It's city when they're permitting, and they must have hit the wall on something.
Yeah.
But that's just my desire because I want us not to, in a way, to say self-sustainable. I don't want to be at the mercy of a well that we have to constantly treat and make sure it's safe. I don't want to be at the mercy of
And it would be good to have
septic.
the well just be the irrigation around there.
Absolutely.
So you're not wasting
or even
water.
a plan B if it works.
Yeah.
But so those are kind of, and then just
volunteers for gardening.
Volunteers for gardening. Well, I put it out there. Any help. And 10 acres. I mean, tree trimming. Once a year.
Yeah.
There's no end to. We have I think we have 9 apple trees. We need to get them in shape. They need to get sprayed and whatever would be healthy.
And when I remember when we had the ice storm, there were so many big branches. And who was it?
It was Jim Vu from Citizen Bank, and he brought his team with
I love that.
What do they call the things that cut down the trees? And they did
Chainsaws,
it. It would have cost us $20,000 for what they did.
And they rocked it. Thank you,
2
Jim.
weekends. No
Thank you
kidding.
so much.
It was such a gift in those moments. Yeah. But yes, a lot to do over there.
I think also some of the things that we're noticing is that the youth have different needs, like developmental needs and things, and some of them need like a specialized computer so that they can do schoolwork and not have access to the internet.
Yes.
And some of them have, other types of needs that, I'm at a loss for a minute, but I remember those kinds of things, but they were expensive.
But if you have that discretionary fund, like we've had to take into we did a good job during COVID of growing some reserves, but they're being used. But if you keep that fund, then that's where the priority is the kid, no doubt about it. And we have it to give because we're not using that money irresponsibly, honestly, and we keep it as long as we can in the bank because for those moments. But so having the regular. When we have to grow the homes up. Okay. You know what I mean? Because one mentor can service 2 kids. Okay. Roughly on a part-time basis. Right. And
give them enough hours to make it worth it.
Their own mentor. So we're and the state quit paying for mentoring, if you want to get down to it, in the way they used to. Okay. So we are funding that.
out of your organization.
But we do.
Yeah.
That's a really important part
It
of
is important.
their development, is having that support.
Anything else that you could think of that, like maybe, 5 years down the line?
No, I think every program needs to be strong in number, in staffing. It's coming back around. We're finding staff that really, for a while it was barren.
I know.
But they're coming back. They're
when a
signing
system
up.
pays people to stay home, it's going to be barren.
Right. It was barren.
Yeah.
But really building everything up to even better than sustainability over the next 5 years, so that we can start the new program. We can not risk, but take the opportunity to try things and be creative,
right?
Especially in that upstream work.
Exactly.
But if you're struggling in
there
the day,
is a shift I'm seeing right now with Gen Zs that was not true with millennials, and I'm seeing a little bit more a fight to them, and I mean that in a good way. I looked at the data, and it looks like because of COVID, people weren't reporting child abuse. They weren't being removed from the home. That actual foster care numbers are down. But I think that's going to rise again because I see this level of youth being a little bit more like, almost like we were as baby boomers, where you see something and you're willing to fight for it, that kind of fight. And so I think with a lot of the transgender issues, there's specialty needs there as well.
Right.
Other needs that you can think of that?
Well, I think, at ground zero, I think we've covered it. I think when you talk about investigations and reporting abuse, the state's definition is the broadest in the United States. So we're working at changing that.
Okay.
Because they have overarched.
Yeah.
And
said if somebody had a bad feeling.
Everything is no matter what.
If somebody had a bad feeling, they were abused.
If they winked wrong, you know, I mean, come on.
Yeah.
But, but I
and
think we've covered.
The kid and allow the kid to be able to gain some toughness by having a rule that they don't like.
Or protect the proctor parent.
Yeah, that's true too.
Or the staff member.
Yeah.
I mean, we really are.
Yeah.
Duking
throwing the
that
baby out with the bathwater for a minute.
Yes,
Yeah.
But I do think on ground zero we've covered, we need foster homes, spread the word.
Yeah.
We'll interview them, we'll get together, we'll see if it's a fit. They really need to have a parent at home to be able to make budget for themselves because the system isn't extremely funded. I mean, we've upped what we can give, but it's never going to cover all somebody's bills.
Yeah. Who's certifying right now?
A new person named George.
Okay.
Replaced Chris.
Okay.
And he's doing a great job.
Good.
We were getting some referrals, but everybody has their unique needs. But
that's cool.
Resiliency, lived experience helps people that are foster parents get it. Like
that's right.
You can kind of see through it. It doesn't overwhelm. It doesn't scare you.
Yeah.
You understand really what's going on.
Yeah, a kid doesn't scare me. In fact, the louder that they get, the more I know that I'm the safe person.
Exactly.
As the adult.
You're not going to be overwhelmed by behaviors because you actually see beyond it and you know how to motivate.
Yeah.
Because you've had to be motivated, right?
And not to be know how to de-escalate so you're not ramping up the behavior.
Right, exactly.
And I think not taking it personally is a big deal.
Huge.
Yeah.
And being able to hear from the organization directives that don't always match a style.
Yeah.
We're very collaborative these days.
Yeah.
Our model is collaborative problem solving.
Yeah.
And plan B is a mutual both needs met conversation that isn't happening 2 minutes on the way to school.
How do people get a hold of you, Debbie?
So we have a website, www.connections365.com. Our main number, 503-588-5647. They can ask for Debby Lute, and they'll send you to the voicemail if I'm not sitting there. And come knock on our door and say, hey, I want to come out and visit. Give me a time slot. Come see the property.
If you go to the website, you'll have the address. The website is www.connections, and then the number is 365 right after, and .org.
And we changed our name as a DBA because we wanted the community to know that we are here 365 days a year.
Yeah.
And that we're here to make connections like you and I are doing today, and really kind of be able to express the heart of the mission in a practical way.
Yeah.
And we're still formally Christian Community Placement Center with the state of Oregon, but we operate on a day-to-day basis with that heart and statement in mind.
Yeah. Yeah. In the context of the law, which you have to follow, we're doing business, and that's good.
Yeah.
Okay, I appreciate you being here so much,
welcome.
and
Thanks
I know
for
you have
having
to
me.
get back to being ED, and I can't demand your whole day. But I really appreciate being here and just sharing the vision and letting people know, it's not like when I was in foster care, things are different. People are stepping up, and they're stepping up, advocating both for the youth and also for the foster parents.
Correct.
And for the mentors and for the staff. So I appreciate that whole holistic kind of view.
Yeah, that's how I feel about it too. We're at all levels.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Faye.
Appreciate it.